This is episode 38 of the Mindful Mama Movement podcast. Welcome to the Mindful Mama Movement podcast. I'm Shannon Kinney-Düh, creator of A Free Spirit Life.
And I'm Ashley Walburn, owner of Home Holistic. And together we are bringing back the Mindful Mama Movement podcast.
Mindful mothering is about nurturing yourself while you nurture others. It's about consciously awakening to your inner wisdom, strength, power, and peace as a mother in this changing world.
From discovering your newborn to accepting and loving the people who've left your nest, our movement is inspiring mothers to be authentic and to live empowered lives.
We're so happy you're here. All right. Hello, everyone, and happy New Year. Happy 2023. Ashley and I are back after a little bit of a break. And as we were catching up, we've had some adventures already in these few new days of 2023. Hey, Ashley.
Hi, welcome everybody. We're so excited to be here. And as Shannon and I were talking, we really always think we already talked about everything because we've been talking for 20 minutes, but we're going to do some recaps. One of my favorite things anybody has ever said when we think about a new year, Shannon just said to me, was today is January 5th that we're recording. And she said, today is the 5th day of our 365-day book, our 2023 book. And without thinking about intentions or resolutions or anything, that it is just, we're all just going to have a story this year. And I think that feels like a relief for me. That we're reflecting a little bit back on our 2022 story, and the lessons and experiences and, the grief and the joy from that year. And this year, we have a lot that is ahead for us. 360 days, 360 pages.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. So as we were talking, we weren't sure where this topic was going to go. And for those of you listening, we want to just share our real life, share stories that just because it's a new year, it's not necessarily a new us, or a perfect us, or we have these great, planned out intentions and goals. Because, what I tend to feel this time of year is this post holiday coma where, most of us eat differently than we're used to. And we probably spent more than we used to. And our schedules are really off. And, some of the travel that people have gone through and all the things. And then we're expected to the first day of January, have this clarity that this year, this is the year that my life's going to be perfect. And I think we set up ourselves to fail by mid-January, Yeah. And so
I've intentionally not gone to the gym. We have a little gym by us that we're members at that literally haven't been at since probably last January. That I'm not going at least for a few weeks. I'm not going to be the 1st of January gym rat.
No, because I really think that then by mid-January, we feel like failures anyway, because it just wasn't the right time. Now, for some people it is, but for me, I always feel like it's still winter. I'm still just kind of, recuperating from all the holiday stuff. I'm just not ready. But it's also, I think what we're saying with this, the 5th day or the 6th or the 20th day of your story is that it's it's like a story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, there's adventure, there's the challenge, there's the celebration. And I think I want a very peaceful start to the new year, and I want to be very clear about my new goals, and I want to be very intentional. And yet when you think about it truly, Ashley, that'd be the most boring book ever to read.
I want the boring book.
Maybe that'll make us appreciate all the challenges, but still, I like the idea that it's continuous. And, what are you going to do at this moment? What are you going to do with this part of the story? And sometimes it's just completely, the story takes over. It's, we don't know what it's going to be until we turn the page, but there's always a moment where there's that blank page again, where we can turn the page. And so I like that. But both of us were hoping that we could just like start the show and say, yes, life is just grand and I'm so excited. And, we're both having normal challenges that we'd have any time of year.
Yeah, I was sharing with Shannon that my husband and I made a poor choice, that we didn't know it was a poor choice, of course, at the time, and spent the night in my hometown with my parents and my siblings for New Year's Eve. And my college age kids were in my home and ended up having a party. And it seems so obvious now. I feel like the dumbest mom, that we were like, no, you cannot have friends over. Let us know what you're doing. And it did not go optimally. We came home the next morning to a candle that had been going all night and a lot of people sleeping there and a really, really, really big, shocking mess. And um, as we're processing it, we ended up having, what I would say a really hard day. New Year's Day, Shannon knows this is one of my favorite days. We always have just a family day. Every year since my kids were toddlers, we've done vision boards. We have not yet done our vision boards for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that we started out, our day one was probably the biggest conflict I've had specifically with one of my kids ever. And when we, as the day ended, and there's so much already reflecting and lessons from that day. One, I've got college age boys, and all of his friends, all of their friends, knew that we were out of town. They want a place to hang. That seems obvious. I was 19 once. I know where I would have gone. But the conflict that ended up happening for me gave me a really big aha moment. And it was, I don't want to have conflict like that with my children.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak to my children that way, even when they've screwed up. And I think it was a screw up, and I'm frustrated by that.
Mm-hmm.
There's some betrayal and some disrespect. And he's a 19-year-old boy. And that peaceful parenting and making sure that I feel grounded and I feel like what I would just say, I feel like myself when I'm having these difficult conversations is really, really important. And so Shannon and I are going to talk about not necessarily the conflict, but just some lessons that she and I have learned through the years that help us feel more like ourselves. So, one, when a really difficult moment happens, and I can assure you, if you don't have teenagers, you've got some of those ahead. And you might already be having them, that, kind of kid and family dependent, but some things that help for me reset, feel more like myself. So I don't have a regretful fight with my kid, but a useful conversation. And there's no, injuries to our relationship. And, we're going to have some injuries to our relationships. Everybody screws up, I for sure think I screwed up on January 1st, and I'm happy to share about it.
Yeah, well, you and I were talking about some of our past episodes, and you mentioned the episode with Katrina
Mm-hmm.
Kennison, who was one of our
Mm-hmm.
favorites. And at the time, she was raising, or actually, her children
Mm-hmm.
were launched, and
Yep.
she was talking about the difficulties of raising teens. And she mentioned how when she needs to take breaks, she goes for a run,
Mm-hmm.
and she just knows that that's her way to tell her teenager at the time, I'm about to say something I don't want to regret. I'm going to take this space. And, that was something that you, even in the midst of
Mm-hmm.
this heated moment that you had, there was something in you to say, okay, get out, go on your walk.
Yeah. And I maybe was reflecting on that's always really stood out for me. That's like one big thing that stood out for me with that interview that we did with her was when it's really hard. Like I gotta go on a walk or a run or kind of get out of here until I feel like myself. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's when I know I'm ready for this conversation. But that also gives that kid who's frustrated or mad, also 30 minutes to
Right.
whatever. Yeah. Eat something, go outside, go take a quick
Exactly.
nap, and then we'll revisit it. We are going to talk about this,
Right.
but let's give ourselves some peace. And so I went for a walk. I grabbed both my dogs here in Kansas City. It was really nice that day, but I don't like a freezing walk, but we had nice weather. And my husband asked me to come back home. And I think he asked me to come back home because he didn't really know what to do. And I'm for sure the take charge parent. And I wasn't ready to come home. I didn't want to come home. And he asked me to come home. And then then a really big argument ensued with my 19-year-old. And what I was sharing with Shannon was, my husband knows now, that if I say I'm taking a walk, it doesn't mean that I'm ever coming home again. I
It can
didn't
feel like
abandon
it,
you
I'm
guys.
sure, to him in the
Yeah, I'm
moment.
sure it felt like it for him, but that um, I felt like I set a boundary and I needed that.
Mhm.
It just, the whole thing would have gone better had I been able to walk until I was ready to come home. He didn't know it. I've never really done that before. He knows it now, let me assure you. That if I take a walk, or if any of us say, I need a minute, to
Mhm.
honor that minute. That,
Mhm.
if my child says, I don't want to talk about this right now, that say, okay, you got 30 minutes, go
Yes.
do what you need to do. We are going to talk about it, but that they've got time to kind of regroup. I needed that time to regroup. And um, we all wish I would have had it now. Yeah.
Well, I think about when you were telling me this before we hit record,
Mm-hmm.
you said, we don't have to do anything right now. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's so huge, especially for those of us who are maybe newer parents or fixers or people who want to just jump in or, really can't handle those feelings. We get very anxious and we want to control the situation.
Yeah.
And I love that, you're sharing that, even with your older children, no matter what age children you're dealing with, we all have moments where we need that space and we don't have
Yeah.
to fix or figure out the thing right then and there. And then you also said like the peaceful parenting journey, like keeping that peaceful connection was more important to you. But in the moment when we don't, this is something you've never been through. And so to give
Mm-mm.
yourself a lot of grace too, and just be like, look, no matter what stage of parenthood we're at, we're always faced with a new, how am I going to handle this? And I
Yeah.
think that reminder of get the space that you need, because, I started listening to the book, The Emotion Code, and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
talking
Good.
about, just the reminder that emotions are frequency. It's this energy that builds up and we have to release it. We have to learn how to release, or it gets bottled up in different parts of the body and triggered and re-triggered. And so just that alone, you taking the moment to walk and move and get some of that frequency, that energy
Yeah.
out, had to happen. But instead
Mm-hmm.
well, here's another episode that you and I also loved. It was so I was going back through our podcast, the Katrina Kennison, highly recommend going back to that one. That's episode 12. And then we talked to Casey,
Oh,
um
yes.
yes,
Roy.
Casey Arorty, and that was episode, we had two long talks with her, episode 24 and 25. So go back and listen to those. But she reminded us, it's Dan Siegel's work, of where your lid gets flipped. And
Mm-hmm.
when you get mad, and this happens for your toddler, this happens all through adulthood, we tend to, in that moment, our lid gets flipped, and that is not the time to try to solve the problem, try to connect, right? We
Mm-hmm.
need the space so that then that lid can come down, and then we have our thinking mind again. We can connect and right, connect before we correct.
Yeah.
But what a huge lesson. And just Ashley, I just want to commend you for sharing the story,
Mm-hmm.
because the thing that you said, the only thing that matters to me is having a peaceful
Mm-hmm.
relationship. I think that's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is too. And, the silver linings of difficult moments, that the silver lining, and that we've talked about several things, that the silver lining was I I learned if I need to take a break, I need to take it. If I say I can't do this right now, I I get to pick when that happens,
Mhm.
or they do, it's not just me. But if I don't feel like myself, then who's showing up is an overwhelmed, maxed out part of myself, not my kind of overall sense of calm and well-being self.
Right.
That's who I want to show up, even if I'm mad, even if
Right.
I'm disappointed, even if my kid had a party at my house and, possibly almost burn it down with a candle going all night. That I don't, the candle sticks out more than the wine, that I'm so, and it was a brand new good candle that's like gone now. I'm also mad about that. I'm not dumb. But, you know, I it's still so important to me that in this book of being a mom,
Yeah.
that they know they can come to me. And if I'm screaming my head off, or if I'm maxed out, my lid's been flipped, that then they know that mom's kind of guns are loaded and I'm hot. And I want them to know that even if I screw it all up, even if I make a really bad choice, she's still going to be there for me. I can still kind of like lay my head in her lap, and she's going to nurture me and support me. And if
Mm.
I want my kids to know, even when they screw up, they can call me. That
Mhm.
that is everything. I did this meditation, and Shannon and I both love the app Insight Timer. It's so good. It's so good. It's free, or you can pay like a little bit to get on it. And Shannon's got actually some meditations of her own on there that are amazing.
We'll share
But
some
I
of
was,
our favorites as you're
oh yeah,
talking about this in the show notes.
yeah. This is a
Yeah.
5-minute parenting meditation, and that's all I could handle. Kind of after our escalated argument, and I went on a walk, and ended up going on a walk, and I made my husband go with me that time. And we talked about it and processed, and we both cried our eyes out, which is a
Mhm.
discharge. The
Yes.
walking is a discharge, the emotional release is. And then I came home and I took an Epsom salt bath. I probably used a whole bag, and listened to a meditation. And the meditation was like 5 minutes of parenting, but I'll share it. And it talked about like, oh, like when you're so frustrated, or you're so worried, or you're so mad, or you're so sad, like what, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? And I could go back to that moment, and it was a bursting 10. It was a really fat 10. And she does a very good job of talking you down and then bringing it into perspective. Like,
Mm.
in the whole scheme of things, everything's really okay right now. And that was so helpful for me. And then it kind of helped me be like, the only thing that matters to me is a peaceful, connected relationship with my children. Do I need to always be right? Do I need to always be teaching them a lesson? He knows he screwed up, frankly.
Right.
He knows he wasn't supposed to do all the things he did. Did I need to let him know for literally like 3 hours? Did it need to go the way that it did? And I'm going to tell you it didn't. It
Mm.
wasn't useful. He didn't get it. There was no accountability. There was not a deep and meaningful apology at all. He's 19. He doesn't have
Mhm.
access to it. And I know that in the moment, man, I wanted him to
Right.
say, "I'm sorry, mom."
Right.
As I went down the scale, if I could have said when I walked in the door, yeah, that I'm at a 10, I'm going to go take a walk until I'm at a 3.
Mhm.
Man, oh man, everybody would have been like, okay, we probably all clean this shit up, that,
Right.
mom's going to go get her stuff together, and she's going to come back and not go off.
Yes.
That, it feels like a barometer. What am I at right now? If you're at an 8, 9, or 10 with anything, it's not a great time to deal with it.
Mhm.
It's not a great time to have a argument with your husband or your partner or your children until you're
Yeah.
like, I'm way down. I'm way down here.
And it's also a reminder that if your children are at that, because a lot of times my children will get their lids flipped. And,
Mhm.
if I'm not grounded or if I'm, got too much going on, then I just get sucked into the tornado too. And then now we're both, but sometimes they need the space too, to just, remember that maybe your lid isn't flipped, but your children's is.
Yeah.
Like, because I think sometimes we try to like reason with them or have them explain why they did something when their lid is flipped too. And it's just like everybody needs their space sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, our, I don't know if it's a real definition, but my definition of overwhelm is when we lose our ability to cope and respond, and it leaves us feeling helpless and hopeless and out of control. And what was happening was out of control.
Yes.
And we did not, none of us had an ability to cope or respond. We were being reactive and out of control.
Mm,
And that when we think of overwhelm, overwhelm's the 10, it's the 8, 9, and 10 of the barometer. And so, like,
yes.
when we can start seeing the signs of they're being triggered by everything, they're being very reactive, they hit their brother, whatever it is that's
Yeah.
going on, then it's a really good time for everybody to de escalate and do the things that help us feel more grounded, more peaceful, more, for me, just, I never dreamed of being like the best mom. Like that wasn't my dream. My dream was being a connected mom. That I wanted to be the mom that my kids and their close friends like knew they could count on.
Yes.
And intensity, like I'm an intense person. I get a lot done in a day. What happens is if you're at a 10, if you're overwhelmed, then you're not accessible to them. It's not you that's parenting them.
Hmm.
And I I want to show up as myself, as that true and authentic self. And sometimes she's intense, but she's really present and still really rad, even,
Yeah.
but it's me, that I'm in control of myself and the things that come out of my mouth.
That's so good. Preparation. And, what can
Mm-hmm.
we do to feel prepared when we get triggered, when we're in a moment we've never been in before? And then, sometimes it doesn't go the way that we wanted. And to be able to say, like, I'm still an okay mom, I'm still a great mom, I'm still
Mm-hmm.
a connected and loving mom, even though I maybe said something I wish I hadn't, or I
Mm-hmm.
responded, or I wasn't very prepared because I've never been through this before. But being, gentle with ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
having self compassion to be able to say, hey, I screwed up, or I feel like I would have loved to handle this differently, and maybe next time I will. But how can I be kind to myself also?
I
Mhm.
think if we apologize to like an authentic apology and an accountability, that
Yes.
literally is modeling for our children to be accountable and to
Yes.
apologize. Like
Right.
we're all screwing it up. Like we're all doing our best.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to be a mom of college age kids. And I am doing my best. And some days aren't great. My girlfriend used to say, listen, every day isn't going to be a winner. And I think it's an honoring, like, oh, well, so today was not a winner.
Yeah.
And I need a reboot and a reset and to remind myself and my kids, we are just learning that
Mhm.
this, it's like a yoga practice. It's not called a yoga perfect, that parenting is really a practice and an experiment of learning and growing and learning and
Yeah.
growing and getting better and having some setbacks too.
Right. Life is all about that. And I think
Mm,
about, I love you said we are just learning. It's like, Hey guys, I mean, that's kind of like a cool family mantra. Like, hey, we've
Mhm.
never gone through this either. Like, we're all just learning this thing. And you go back to that idea that this is a new page of your story. The page is blank. If we're really living in the
Mhm.
moment, we can learn from the past. We don't really know what the future
Mhm.
ending of this book is going to be, but the page is blank until we're living it. And so, even if you look ahead a paragraph, we don't know until we've lived it. And so being open to this idea that, hey, we're just learning. This is just life's practice. Um, doesn't mean it makes it easier necessarily. Doesn't mean that there aren't going to be hard times. The pages of our stories, we know when we look back to all the chapters in the books from the past on our bookshelf already. Yeah, they're not all peaceful stories, but we've learned.
No, I think I thought my mom, um, and that moms, not really dad so much, but I grew up in the 80s that dads were at work. Um, and then I don't know, watching TV, that I felt like moms really knew all the answers,
Mm.
that like they'd had some kind of a really good parenting course. Turns out they had none of them, that this generation of parenting, there is a lot more
That's probably
information
why
that
they
will
left us
help us
alone a
too.
lot more back then, though, because they had no idea
They
what
didn't
to
know
do.
what to
So
do.
they just like throw us out in the alleyways and in the
Just
woods
get
and
out of
just
here.
come back for food and you'll be fine.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to be in the kitchen again.
Right.
Yeah, that as I've aged and have conversations with my mom, I'm so grateful for that. When my oldest son went to college, I was like, "How did you survive us going to college?" And she was like, "Oh no, I like got in bed and cried for days." I'm like, "I never knew that. I never knew." Like she really like kind of kept it together,
Mhm.
and that and that's kind of my mom's way, that she did a lot of suffering and silence. I'm like, but dinner's on the table, and I'm like, I didn't know it was going to be so hard. The hard parts, I also didn't know that the good parts would be as good as they are. And I think like as kind of parenting support people, like Shannon and I do, mom support people, that we do talk about the hard stuff so much. But the moments, I also want that blank page. I want to feel like myself and present. So when there is a magical moment happening, I'm also there for that, that I'm not in overwhelm.
Right.
And then I'm, already frustrated when there's a sweet moment with my kids or a sweet moment with me, or somebody just wants to have a conversation that I'm, maxed out, that
Mhm.
those sweet moments are so much sweeter than I ever could have imagined.
Mm, I love that. So, what I hear from what we've shared today, we're talking about just how to navigate really the chaos,
Mm.
and the celebrations, but also the confusion that life and our blank story brings on a daily basis, especially as it relates to motherhood and children, because they'll always scribble on your page. That's what Grayson, my 9-year-old's favorite line is, "Oh, my day just got all scribbled up."
Oh,
Isn't
I
that
love it.
amazing?
They'll always scribble on our page.
Yeah.
That's true. And Cole scribbled on my page so bad on January 1st, but then I scribbled it up. Yeah, then
That's
I
right. And
added to
sometimes,
it.
you know what? Sometimes maybe we need to give ourselves permission to rip out the pages and crumple them up or burn them
Mhm.
and just turn the page. Do we have to learn from every? I don't know. We'll talk about that at another
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
But there are pages we could rip out and just like,
yeah. I will tell you, we always have done vision boards and it's been so fun. And this year, obviously, like we were all just like, okay, everybody back to their corner and
yes,
go,
get the
go,
space.
go regroup.
Yeah.
And so we haven't done it. And Will and I were talking that I think I would like to do like a burning ritual or a burning ceremony where we, offer
Mhm.
each other kind of a fresh start. Maybe we'll vision board after that, but I mean, we for sure, there's still some tension in our house, and there needs to be, I saged that house. So I can't even
Yeah.
tell you, I'm such a like crazy hippie mom. I saged every corner. I was like climbing up on bookshelves. I'm like, I don't know what's hiding back there, but I'm going to get it. That that what do we kind of need to cleanse? And I think doing
Love it.
something like a little, you know, word that I need to let go of, or an
Yes. Yes.
experience that I'm still kind of feeling affected by, that, like, let's
Mhm.
burn it up. Let's let it go. Let's scribble on it.
This is a perfect new family tradition, and you need to use that candle you keep referring to
Uh-huh.
in a positive
You ruined
way.
my candle. Yeah. I've
Now
got
we're
I've
gonna
got a half an
burn.
inch left.
That's right. Do it outside. Oh my goodness. But yes, I think that, some of what we've shared today is really that's where the healing is for me and sharing with Ashley
Mhm.
and hearing her story. It's like we want you to know that you're not alone in whatever you're dealing with too.
Mhm.
Life is messy, it's chaotic. Parenting children of all ages, they are going to scribble on the pages. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
They're also going to draw some beautiful things that will shock the heck out of you and teach you
Yeah.
a lot along the way. But it's definitely a journey of with surprises every turn of that page. And so our authentic sharing, you reaching out to people who you trust, sharing your stories, not doing what they did in the 80s, suffering in silence, like
Mhm.
everything's fine, everything's perfect. No,
Yep.
it's really, we didn't want to have a show about new year new you
Mm-mm.
and paint this picture that we've got our lives together. It's a constant um, something to learn. And we hope that you have someone to share with, that you can turn to, something that gets you breathing and into your body and grounded, just all those ways that we can feel like I can do this. I may not be able to
Yeah.
do it right now, but I can do this. And here I am in the present. Here is myself ready to face this blank page, even though it's pretty darn scary and I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah. This is a page turner, as they say.
Yeah, can we turn the page?
Yeah.
Yes. So I have some journal prompts because, talking about the end of the year, I always like to use it as a moment to reflect. And you're, thinking about this journal or this page in our story, it's like I think it's a really actually beautiful practice at the end of every day. I kind of do this sometimes to prepare for sleep, is you just in a quiet moment, you don't have to sit in meditation, but you can just reflect, just take a moment to reflect. What was the day like? How did I show up as myself today? When did I speak up and say I needed space or set a boundary? Or what did I learn? When did I laugh? Like just reflecting so that
Mhm.
you can then turn the page, that you can just set it aside and be ready for what's to come. So taking that time for reflection, that's what I think this year does for us as we slow down, as we, enter this new year. Do you feel that too, Ashley?
I do. And I think I remember when my kids were really little, and I was just so busy. The busyness changes for sure. And I remember, like, I'd hit the bed, all the kids would finally be asleep, and Will and
Yeah.
I would get in bed. And I would go, "Was there any laughter today?" And he would say, "There was laughter. There was laughter."
Mm.
And then I'd fall asleep. It was like, okay, then
I
we
love
must be
it.
all right.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yep.
the reflecting at the end of the day, that sometimes a day is too long, like when people say, like, take it one day at a time. I'm like, no, no, no. You
Five
know,
minutes, please.
yet
Yeah.
take it a moment at a time. And that then when you're reflecting at the end of the day, you could be like, ooh, I needed another moment, or I could have used support here. And so next time when, XYZ happens, this next thing that's curveballed toward you, that I've got a skill to get through it that I didn't have today. I did
Mhm.
not have the skill to get through what was thrown at me on New Year's Day this year. I didn't have it, but I I did learn a lot. So did Will. I think Cole did.
Mhm.
That we learned so much, and so now I've got a new set of skills that, heaven forbid, like, I really hope that it doesn't happen, but there's going to be another difficult day and another difficult conversation, and that I used the skills that I learned
Mhm.
through this. And when we're journaling, or, talking to our partner, talking to our girlfriend on the phone at the end of the day. I hope all of us can honor that, man, I'm trying so hard. Man, I'm trying so hard. And there were some setbacks and also some really big victories that I hope for all of us that we can remind ourselves of all the good stuff that you did today. The food, yeah, we still have a house, whatever it is.
So these are some of the topics that we'll be sharing with you in future episodes. We want to talk more about what it's like to raise teenagers, what it's like to parent older children. We want to talk about the art of conversation and connection with our kids, and doing that through communication, through forgiveness. We have creating your new family story and what that looks like, the family of origin work that we'll be sharing along the way. So we have a lot of new topics that are relevant because we're also experiencing these and learning them along the way. So we're just really excited to continue bringing the Mindful Mama Movement podcast into 2023. And, I'm going to share these questions with you just real quickly. You can pause, grab a journal. You can just listen and ask yourself one question, see what comes up for you, maybe a word, a phrase, a feeling. And this is just a nice thing to do as we reflect on our past book for 2022. And we are now open to this new story for this new year. So what is one of your biggest celebrations from this past year? What's one struggle or challenge you'd like to honor? What have you learned about yourself and your life in 2022? What's one gift or lesson you want to take with you into this new year? And what are you most grateful for in this moment? So I'm thankful for you, Ashley, for your sharing, for this new page in our story, for all of you listening, for just women who are raising children and walking this journey and showing up every day. Because believe me, there are days when I don't want to show up. I'm like, what? This is a lifetime job?
Again?
Again? You need to eat again? Like, come on already. Yeah. So showing up to support each other, showing up together, because we know it's hard and we know it's magical. We know it's all in between. And thank you for honoring our stories. Thank you for sharing your stories. And thank you, Ash, for joining me in this awesome show.
Well, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be here. And side note, Shannon wasn't planning on me saying this part, but she shares or sells on her Etsy page and on her website, afreespiritlife.com, the most beautiful journals. If you don't have a journal that you love, her journals are so beautiful and the most perfect colors, watercolor. And so if you don't have a journal, give yourself a 2023. Yeah, so pretty.
Thank you. It's so new for me to put my art out there, and more journals are coming. I can't stop painting. It's an obsession. I love it. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's really fun.
Good. I love them. I love them. Well, thank you. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to reach out, go to mindfulmamamovementpodcast.com. You can join our mailing list. You can shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. What are some of the New Year's intentions and reflections that you're experiencing right now? And what kind of shows and topics do you want to hear in future episodes? Also, if you can help us get the word out about our podcast, share it with your friends and go to iTunes, leave us a review and rate the show, because that really helps us reach more mamas just like you. Thanks for being who you are, and we are so excited to continue connecting with you in the new year, and we'll see you in the next episode.